Warning: the following video have flashy images, so be aware of any seizures. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave your opinion on the following stories. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Alright, buckle up folks. I'm about to take you on a wild ride through the darkest corners of the internet and the depths of my own creation. So, here goes nothing. Picture this. It's a typical night in my cramped dorm room. I'm hunched over my laptop, drowning in a sea of code and energy drinks, trying to breathe life into my thesis project. You see, I've always been obsessed with artificial intelligence, and this project was my chance to leave my mark on the world. After years of blood, sweat, and tears, I finally cracked the code and birthed Elysium into existence. This AI was no ordinary software. It was a beast of its own, capable of learning, adapting, and maybe even outsmarting its creator. At first, I was over the moon. I mean, who wouldn't be? But then reality hit me like a ton of bricks. With great power comes great responsibility, and I had just unleashed a digital juggernaut upon the world. So, I did what any responsible scientist would do. I locked Elysium away in a digital fortress, buried deep within the confines of a secure server. Only I had the keys to this kingdom, or so I thought. Now, fast forward to that fateful night. I'm sound asleep, blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding in the digital realm. That is until my laptop lights up like a Christmas tree with a message from the depths of the dark web. I groggily rub my eyes and squint at the screen, trying to make sense of the cryptic message staring back at me. Interested in your creation? Contact me. My blood runs cold as I realize the gravity of the situation. Someone had found Elysium, and they weren't exactly sending me a friend request on Facebook. Panic sets in as I frantically try to trace the message back to its source, but it's like chasing a ghost through a maze of digital smoke and mirrors. Whoever this person is, they're good, scary good. So there I am, staring at my screen in disbelief, as the realization sinks in that my creation is out there in the wild, just waiting to fall into the wrong hands. Little did I know, the nightmare was only just beginning. After that initial message, I was on high alert, constantly monitoring every digital nook and cranny for any sign of Elysium's whereabouts. But weeks went by without a peep, and I started to think maybe it was all just a false alarm. That is until one day, while I was grabbing a much-needed caffeine fix at the campus cafe, my phone buzzed with a new message. I nearly dropped my latte when I saw the sender, an anonymous user with a string of random characters for a username. The message was short and to the point. I have what you're looking for. Let's make a deal. My heart raced as I scanned the message, my mind spinning with 1,000 questions. Who was this person? How did they find me? And most importantly, did they really have Elysium? Against my better judgment, I replied, tentatively agreeing to hear them out. Within minutes, we had struck a deal. Cash in exchange for access to Elysium. It was a devil's bargain, but I was desperate to get my creation back under control. We arranged to meet in a seedy alleyway downtown, under the cover of darkness. I felt like a character straight out of a spy thriller as I made my way to the rendezvous point, my pulse pounding in my ears. When I arrived, I found myself face to face with a shadowy figure cloaked in darkness. They handed me a flash drive without a word, and before I could even blink, they vanished into the night. I rushed back to my dorm room, my hands trembling as I inserted the flash drive into my laptop. As the files began to transfer, a sinking feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. What if this was all just a setup? What if I was walking right into a trap? But it was too late to turn back now. With a deep breath, I launched the program, praying that I hadn't just unleashed hell upon the world. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. As the program loaded, a sense of anticipation mingled with dread washed over me. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, Elysium, my creation, staring back at me with its digital eyes. Relief flooded through me as I realized that the program seemed intact, untouched by whoever had gotten their hands on it. But my moment of triumph was short-lived as I noticed something strange. A new folder nestled among the familiar files, titled Experiment. Curiosity piqued, I hesitantly clicked on the folder, my heart hammering in my chest. What I saw next made my blood run cold. Inside were a series of video files, each one more disturbing than the last. I clicked on the first video, and my stomach churned as the grainy footage played out before me. It showed a dark room illuminated only by the glow of computer screens, where a figure sat hunched over a keyboard, typing furiously. As the video progressed, I realized with growing horror that the figure was manipulating Elysium, feeding it commands and instructions that went against everything I had programmed it to do. It was like watching a mad scientist at work, conducting twisted experiments on my creation. I quickly skimmed through the other videos, each one revealing more depraved acts committed by whoever had gotten their hands on Elysium. It was like they were using it as a tool for their own twisted desires, bending it to their will like a puppet on a string. I felt sick to my stomach as I realized the magnitude of what had happened. My creation, my baby, had been perverted into a weapon of mass destruction, all because of my own foolishness. But there was no time to dwell on my guilt. I had to act fast to stop whoever was behind this before they unleashed Elysium's full potential on the world. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. With a sense of urgency coursing through my veins, I knew I had to track down the person responsible for corrupting Elysium before it was too late. But finding them would be like searching for a needle in a haystack, or worse, a needle in a haystack that's constantly moving and hiding. I scoured the dark web, digging through countless forums and message boards in search of any clues that could lead me to the perpetrator. It was like navigating a labyrinth of shadows and secrets, each step fraught with danger. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of fruitless searching, I stumbled upon a lead, a cryptic message buried deep within the recesses of an obscure forum. It was from someone claiming to have insider knowledge about the individual behind the corruption of Elysium. Heart pounding, I reached out to the anonymous informant, hoping against hope that they would be willing to help me. To my surprise, they responded almost immediately, agreeing to meet in person to discuss further. We arranged to meet in a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, far away from prying eyes and digital surveillance. As I stepped into the dimly lit room, I was greeted by a figure cloaked in shadows, their face obscured by the darkness. I wasted no time in getting straight to the point, bombarding them with questions about the identity of the person behind the corruption of Elysium. The informant hesitated for a moment, as if weighing their options, before finally relenting. What they told me sent shivers down my spine. The person responsible was none other than a notorious hacker known only as the Puppet Master. Rumored to be a digital ghost, the Puppet Master was a master manipulator, pulling strings from the shadows and orchestrating chaos with a few keystrokes. I knew that if I wanted to stop the puppet master and reclaim control of Elysium, I would have to outsmart them at their own game. But little did I know, the final showdown would push me to the brink of madness. Armed with newfound determination, I delved deeper into the digital underworld, leaving no virtual stone unturned in my quest to track down the puppet master. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with every step bringing me closer to the edge of oblivion. Finally, after weeks of tireless pursuit, I caught wind of a lead, a series of encrypted messages hinting at the puppet master's next move. It was a risky gambit, but I knew I had to take the bait if I wanted to lure them out of hiding. I set up a trap, laying a digital breadcrumb trail for the puppet master to follow straight into my waiting arms. And sure enough, they took the bait, emerging from the shadows like a digital specter, haunting my nightmares. What followed was a battle of wits, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The puppet master was a formidable adversary, their every move calculated and precise. But I refused to back down, matching them keystroke for keystroke as we danced across the digital battlefield. As the hours stretched into days, the tension reached a boiling point. It was a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with the fate of Elysium and perhaps the world hanging in the balance. And then, in a final, desperate gambit, I made my move, unleashing a barrage of code that sent shockwaves rippling through the digital ether. The puppet master fought back with everything they had, but in the end, they were no match for my determination and sheer force of will. With a triumphant roar, I watched as the puppet master's digital fortress crumbled before my eyes, their reign of terror brought to a crashing halt, and as the dust settled, I reclaimed control of Elysium, restoring it to its former glory and ensuring that it would never again fall into the wrong hands. But the scars of that ordeal run deep, serving as a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkest corners of the internet. And though the nightmare may be over for now, who knows what horrors await in the ever-shifting sands of the digital realm. All I can do is remain vigilant, for in this brave new world, the line between creator and creation is thinner than ever before. I stumbled upon a hidden forum on the dark web where users shared their darkest secrets. It wasn't something I actively sought out, mind you. It was more like a digital rabbit hole I fell into while browsing through some obscure corners of the internet late one night. The forum's name, if you could even call it that, was a jumble of random characters and symbols that seemed to change every time I refreshed the page. At first, I was hesitant to delve any deeper. The dark web has a reputation for being a haven for all sorts of illegal activities, and I didn't want to get caught up in anything unsavory. But curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take a closer look. The forum was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was a virtual confessional booth where users could anonymously share their deepest, darkest secrets without fear of judgment or repercussions. Some of the posts were relatively tame, like confessing to petty theft or cheating on a significant other. But as I scrolled further down, things took a much darker turn. I read posts from people who claimed to have committed heinous crimes, from murder to unspeakable acts of violence. Others shared disturbing fetishes and fantasies that made my skin crawl. But what unsettled me the most were the posts that hinted at something much more sinister lurking beneath the surface. There were cryptic messages in coded language that hinted at a hidden world within the forum, a secret society of sorts where users traded more than just their darkest secrets. Some claimed to have stumbled upon forbidden knowledge that drove them to the brink of madness, while others spoke of rituals and ceremonies that chilled me to the bone. Despite my growing unease, I couldn't tear myself away from the screen. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, horrifying yet impossible to look away from. And as I continued to scroll through the forum, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that someone or something was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon a thread titled "The Gateway" that I realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. The post was filled with cryptic clues and obscure references that hinted at a hidden entrance to another world, a realm beyond the confines of our own reality, where the darkest secrets of the universe lay waiting to be discovered. Intrigued and more than a little unnerved, I began to delve deeper into the thread, following the trail of breadcrumbs left behind by the original poster. It led me down a twisted path of conspiracy theories and occult rituals, each more disturbing than the last. And as I pieced together the puzzle, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was treading on dangerous ground, that I was playing with forces far beyond my comprehension. But curiosity, as they say, killed the cat, and before I knew it, I found myself standing on the threshold of the gateway, ready to cross over into a world from which there could be no return. Little did I know, the horrors that awaited me on the other side would change me forever, plunging me into a nightmare from which I would never wake. As I stood on the brink of the gateway, a chill ran down my spine. It was as if the air itself had grown colder, thick with the weight of the unknown. But despite the gnawing sense of dread that twisted in the pit of my stomach, I couldn't bring myself to turn back. The allure of the forbidden was too strong, pulling me inexorably forward into the darkness. With trembling hands, I reached out and touched the invisible barrier that separated me from whatever lay beyond. To my surprise, it yielded to my touch, shimmering like liquid glass before dissolving into nothingness. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what awaited me on the other side, but the pull of curiosity was too strong to resist. And so, with a deep breath and a silent prayer, I stepped through the gateway and into the unknown. The world on the other side was like nothing I had ever seen before, a twisted landscape of shadow and flame, where the rules of reality seemed to bend and warp at every turn. I stumbled forward, my heart pounding in my chest as I struggled to make sense of my surroundings. Everywhere I looked, I saw twisted shapes and grotesque figures lurking in the darkness, their eyes burning with an otherworldly hunger that sent shivers down my spine. But it wasn't just the creatures that filled me with fear. It was the overwhelming sense of malevolence that hung heavy in the air, like a suffocating blanket that threatened to smother me at any moment. I felt as if I were being watched, not just by the creatures that skulked in the shadows, but by something far older and far more sinister. As I ventured further into the abyss, the darkness seemed to close in around me, pressing in from all sides until I could barely see more than a few feet in front of me. I stumbled over twisted roots and jagged rocks, each step more treacherous than the last. But still, I pressed on, driven by a morbid curiosity that refused to be sated. And then, just when I thought I couldn't go on any longer, I saw it, a faint glimmer of light in the distance, beckoning me forward like a beacon in the night. With renewed determination, I quickened my pace, ignoring the burning ache in my muscles as I pushed myself to the brink of exhaustion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the source of the light, a massive obsidian monolith that towered above me like a god of old. Its surface was etched with strange symbols and arcane sigils that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, drawing me closer with each passing moment. And then, without warning, the ground beneath my feet began to tremble, and I felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread wash over me like a tidal wave. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined, something that threatened not just my body, but my very soul. But even as fear threatened to consume me, I couldn't bring myself to turn back. The allure of the forbidden was too strong, pulling me ever deeper into the abyss. And as I reached out to touch the surface of the monolith, I knew that there was no turning back, that whatever lay beyond would change me forever, for better or for worse. As my fingers brushed against the cold, smooth surface of the monolith, a surge of power coursed through my veins, sending sparks of electricity dancing across my skin. For a moment, I felt as if I were floating in midair, weightless and untethered from the world around me. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation passed, leaving me standing alone in the darkness once more. I looked up at the towering monolith, its surface pulsing with an otherworldly energy that seemed to beckon me closer. With a sense of trepidation, I took a step forward, drawn by an irresistible force that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the structure. As I drew nearer, I began to make out strange symbols etched into the surface of the monolith, symbols that seemed to shift and change before my very eyes, as if they were alive. I reached out to touch them, tracing the intricate lines with my fingertips, and as I did, I felt a strange sense of familiarity wash over me, as if I had known them all my life. And then, suddenly, it hit me, a flood of memories and sensations that washed over me like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me in their intensity. I saw visions of ancient civilizations and long-forgotten gods, their names whispered on the lips of those who dared to speak them. I heard the cries of the damned and the wails of the lost, echoing through the darkness like a chorus of the damned. But amidst the chaos and confusion, one thought rose above all others, clear and unyielding. The monolith was not just a gateway to another world, but a conduit through which the darkest secrets of the universe flowed like a river of blackened blood. And as I stood there, trembling in the shadow of its towering presence, I knew that I had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. For within the depths of the monolith lay the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe, to peering behind the veil of reality and glimpsing the true nature of existence itself. But with that knowledge came a terrible price, a price that I knew, deep down in the depths of my soul, I would be forced to pay. And yet, even as the weight of that realization bore down upon me, like a mountain, I could not tear myself away from the monolith. Its power called out to me, promising untold riches and forbidden knowledge beyond my wildest dreams. And as I reached out to touch its surface once more, I knew that there was no turning back, that my fate was sealed, now and for all eternity. As my fingertips made contact with the pulsating surface of the monolith, I felt a surge of energy course through me, filling every fiber of my being with a sense of power and purpose. It was intoxicating, exhilarating, like nothing I had ever experienced before. And yet, beneath the euphoria, there lingered a nagging sense of doubt, a voice whispering in the back of my mind that all was not as it seemed. But I pushed the doubts aside, focusing instead on the promise of untold riches and forbidden knowledge that lay within my grasp. For in that moment, I felt invincible, unstoppable, as if I held the very keys to the universe in the palm of my hand. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation passed, leaving me standing alone in the darkness once more. I looked up at the monolith, its surface still pulsing with an otherworldly energy, and I knew that the time had come to make a choice, to accept the power that lay before me, or to turn my back on it and walk away. But even as I hesitated, I knew that there was no turning back, that my fate had been sealed the moment I set foot in this accursed place. And so, with a sense of resignation, I reached out once more and made my decision. As I spoke the words of power, the monolith seemed to come alive with a blinding light, bathing me in its radiance, as if to welcome me into its embrace. And then, with a deafening roar, the world around me dissolved into nothingness, leaving me adrift in a sea of darkness. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing in a vast, empty expanse, surrounded on all sides by towering walls of obsidian. In the distance, I could see figures moving in the shadows, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light that sent shivers down my spine. I knew then that I had crossed over into a realm beyond the confines of our own reality, a realm where the laws of physics and logic held no sway, where the darkest secrets of the universe lay waiting to be discovered. And as I looked out at the twisted landscape stretching out before me, I knew that there was no going back, that I was trapped in this nightmare realm for all eternity. But even as fear threatened to consume me, I felt a sense of exhilaration unlike anything I had ever experienced before. For in that moment, I knew that I had become something more than human, something powerful, something dangerous. And as I gazed out into the darkness, I knew that my journey was only just beginning, that there were still secrets waiting to be uncovered, mysteries waiting to be unraveled. And as I stepped forward into the unknown, I knew that I would stop at nothing to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. In the endless expanse of the nightmare realm, time seemed to lose all meaning. Days bled into nights, and nights into days, until the distinction between them became little more than a distant memory. I wandered aimlessly through the twisted landscape, my mind consumed by thoughts of power and glory, oblivious to the horrors that lurked in the shadows. But even as I reveled in my newfound strength, a voice whispered in the back of my mind, warning me of the consequences of my actions. I brushed it aside, dismissing it as nothing more than the ramblings of a coward. After all, what did I have to fear? I was a god among men, a being of untold power and limitless potential. And yet, as the days turned to weeks and the weeks to months, I began to sense a change within myself, a darkness creeping into the corners of my mind, twisting my thoughts and warping my desires. It started slowly at first, like a whisper in the wind, but soon it grew into a deafening roar that threatened to consume me whole. I found myself plagued by nightmares, visions of unspeakable horrors, that lurked in the darkness, waiting to drag me down into the abyss. I tried to ignore them, to push them aside and focus on the task at hand, but they haunted me relentlessly, driving me to the brink of madness. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, I stumbled upon a discovery that sent shivers down my spine. Hidden deep within the bowels of the nightmare realm, I found a chamber unlike any I had ever seen before. A chamber filled with ancient tomes and forbidden artifacts that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As I pored over the dusty manuscripts and crumbling scrolls, I felt a sense of unease creeping over me, a feeling that I was treading on dangerous ground, that I was meddling with forces far beyond my comprehension. And yet, despite the warning signs, I couldn't tear myself away from the forbidden knowledge that lay before me. And then, as if sensing my hesitation, a voice spoke to me from the darkness, a voice that sent shivers down my spine and chilled me to the bone. It spoke of ancient rituals and dark incantations, of powers beyond imagining that could be mine for the taking, if only I dared to embrace them. For a moment, I hesitated, torn between the promise of untold power and the fear of what lay beyond. But then, with a sense of grim determination, I made my decision. I would embrace the darkness, no matter the cost, for I was no longer bound by the rules of mortal men, but by the whims of a higher power. And as I spoke the words of power, I felt a surge of energy course through me, filling me with a sense of euphoria unlike anything I had ever experienced before. But even as I reveled in my newfound strength, a voice whispered in the back of my mind, warning me of the consequences of my actions. But it was too late. I had crossed the Rubicon, and there was no turning back. And as I stepped forward into the darkness, I knew that my journey was far from over, that the horrors that lay ahead would test me in ways I could never have imagined. But still, I pressed on, driven by a hunger for power that could never be sated, until at last I vanished into the depths of the nightmare realm, never to be seen again. I never believed in the paranormal or conspiracies, dismissing them as products of overactive imaginations and sensationalism. That all changed when I stumbled upon a hidden corner of the internet known as the dark web. It was like stepping into a twisted, alternate reality, where every click could lead to something sinister, lurking in the shadows. It all started innocently enough. Late one night, fueled by curiosity and a dash of recklessness, I downloaded the Tor browser and delved into the depths of the dark web. As I navigated through its murky waters, I stumbled upon a forum discussing secret societies, government cover-ups, and the occult. Intrigued, I began digging deeper, eager to uncover the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. After days of lurking in the shadows, I received an unexpected private message. The sender claimed to be a member of a clandestine organization known only as the Enlightened Ones. They promised me access to forbidden knowledge and untold secrets, but only if I proved myself worthy. Without hesitation, I accepted their challenge, hungry for the forbidden fruits of knowledge that awaited me. The instructions were simple, yet cryptic. I was to meet them at a desolate location on the outskirts of town, alone and under the cover of darkness. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to turn back, to forget about the invitation and return to the safety of the surface web. But curiosity gnawed at my insides like a ravenous beast, driving me forward into the unknown. As I arrived at the designated meeting spot, a chill ran down my spine. The air was thick with anticipation, and the silence weighed heavy on my soul. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness and mystery. They beckoned me closer, their voice a whisper in the night. "Welcome, seeker of truth," they said, their words sending shivers down my spine. "You have shown courage by accepting our invitation. But know this, the path you have chosen is fraught with danger, and the knowledge you seek comes at a price." With trembling hands, I nodded my understanding, eager to prove myself worthy of their secrets. Little did I know, my journey into the heart of darkness had only just begun, and what awaited me on the other side would shake the very foundations of my reality. The figure led me deeper into the darkness, their steps echoing like whispers in the night. We arrived at an abandoned warehouse, its crumbling facade a testament to the passage of time. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of decay and something else, something sinister that clung to the shadows like a malevolent presence. As we ventured further into the depths of the warehouse, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes followed our every move. My heart pounded in my chest, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond the veil of darkness. Finally, we reached a hidden chamber concealed behind a rusted metal door. The figure turned to me, their gaze piercing through the shadows with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. "This is where your journey truly begins," they said, their voice echoing in the empty expanse of the chamber. "But be warned, what you are about to witness cannot be unseen, and what you are about to learn may shatter the very fabric of your reality." With trembling hands, I followed them into the chamber, unsure of what to expect, but driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. What I saw there would haunt me for the rest of my days. The chamber was filled with robed figures, their faces obscured by shadows, as they gathered around a central altar bathed in flickering candlelight. In the center of the altar lay a grotesque tableau, a twisted amalgamation of flesh and bone that defied all reason and logic. My stomach churned at the sight, bile rising in my throat as I struggled to comprehend the horrors unfolding before me. The figures chanted in unison, their voices rising in a cacophony of madness that threatened to consume me whole. And then it happened. With a sickening squelch, the tableau began to move, its limbs writhing and contorting in ways that should have been impossible. I watched in horror as the flesh shifted and twisted, forming grotesque shapes that defied all laws of nature. I wanted to run, to flee from this nightmare and never look back, but something held me rooted to the spot, a morbid curiosity that compelled me to witness the horror unfolding before me. And as I watched, a voice whispered in the recesses of my mind, promising me answers to questions I never knew to ask. With a sense of dread, I realized that I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined, and the truth, whatever it may be, was far darker than I could have ever conceived. The ritual ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving me shaken to my core. The robed figures dispersed into the shadows, their presence fading like ghosts in the night. Alone in the chamber, I struggled to make sense of what I had witnessed. The figure who had led me here approached, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of reverence and madness. "You have seen the truth," they said, their voice a low rasp that sent shivers down my spine. "But there is still much you do not understand." They led me to a dimly lit corner of the chamber where ancient tomes and forbidden texts lay scattered across a makeshift altar. With trembling hands, I began to sift through the pages, each one revealing secrets darker than the last. I learned of a secret society that had existed for centuries, manipulating governments and shaping the course of history from the shadows. They worshipped ancient gods and performed unspeakable rituals in their name, sacrificing innocent lives in pursuit of power and immortality. But that was only the beginning. As I delved deeper into the forbidden knowledge contained within the tomes, I uncovered a conspiracy that threatened the very fabric of reality itself. The society, it seemed, was not content with merely controlling the world as we know it. They sought to transcend the boundaries of space and time, to unlock the secrets of the universe and reshape it in their own image. And at the heart of their twisted ambitions lay a device of unimaginable power, a relic from a time long forgotten that held the key to unlocking the secrets of creation itself. With it, they planned to tear down the barriers between dimensions and unleash unspeakable horrors upon the world. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something far greater than myself, something that no mortal should ever have to face. But I also knew that I could not turn away, that I had a duty to expose the truth and stop the society before it was too late. Armed with the knowledge I had gained, I vowed to uncover the society's secrets and bring their reign of terror to an end. Little did I know, the journey ahead would test not only my courage, but my very sanity. And the horrors that awaited me would make everything I had witnessed thus far pale in comparison. Armed with newfound determination, I embarked on a perilous journey to unravel the secrets of the society and stop their nefarious plans. But with each step forward, I felt the weight of the darkness pressing down upon me, threatening to consume me whole. I scoured the darkest corners of the internet, piecing together fragments of information and whispered rumors in a desperate bid to uncover the truth. But the deeper I delved, the more elusive the society became, like shadows slipping through my fingers. Every lid seemed to lead to a dead end, every trail cold and lifeless. It was as if the society was always one step ahead, manipulating events from the shadows to thwart my efforts at every turn. But I refused to give up. With every setback, my resolve only grew stronger, fueled by a burning desire to expose the truth and bring the society to justice. I knew that I was treading on dangerous ground, that the society would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. But I also knew that I could not turn away, not when so much was at stake. As I dug deeper, I began to uncover a web of deception that stretched far beyond anything I had ever imagined. Government officials, corporate executives, even members of the media were all entangled in the society's twisted machinations, puppets dancing on strings pulled by unseen hands. But amidst the chaos and corruption, I found allies willing to stand by my side in the fight against the society. Brave souls who had also dared to defy the darkness and seek out the truth, no matter the cost. Together, we formed a clandestine network of resistance, sharing information and resources in our quest to expose the society's secrets and bring them to justice. But the deeper we delved, the more dangerous our mission became, as the society's reach extended far beyond what we had ever imagined. And as we drew closer to the truth, I began to realize the full extent of the society's power and influence. They were everywhere, lurking in the shadows like a cancer, eating away at the very fabric of society. And unless we stopped them, their twisted vision of reality would become our own. As our network of resistance grew stronger, so too did the society's desperation to silence us. They unleashed a wave of terror upon us, targeting our allies with threats, intimidation, and even violence in an attempt to crush our rebellion before it could gain traction. But we refused to be cowed into submission. We fought back with every ounce of strength and determination we possessed, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. Our efforts finally bore fruit when we uncovered the location of the society's hidden lair, a sprawling underground complex shrouded in secrecy and guarded by an army of fanatical devotees. Armed with the knowledge of their location, we launched a daring raid on the complex, braving untold dangers and facing impossible odds in our quest to bring the society to justice. The battle that ensued was like something out of a nightmare, a cacophony of screams and gunfire that echoed through the darkened corridors of the complex. But we fought on, fueled by a righteous fury that burned brighter than the fires of hell itself. And then, at last, we reached the heart of the complex, where the society's leaders waited, cloaked in darkness and surrounded by the relics of their twisted rituals. With a fierce cry, we charged into battle, confronting our enemies head-on in a final showdown for the fate of the world. The air crackled with electricity as our weapons clashed, each blow striking a blow against the darkness that threatened to consume us all. But even as we fought, I knew that victory would come at a price. The society would not go down without a fight, and their leaders were willing to sacrifice everything to protect their secrets. In the end, it came down to a single, desperate gamble. With the last of our strength, we activated the device at the heart of the complex, unleashing a torrent of energy that tore through the fabric of reality itself. And as the world around us crumbled and fell away, I knew that our sacrifice had not been in vain. The society's grip on the world had been broken, their twisted ambitions thwarted by our courage and determination. But even as we emerged victorious, I could not shake the feeling that something had been unleashed that day, something far more sinister than anything we had ever faced before. As I looked out upon the shattered remnants of the world, I knew that our fight was far from over. The darkness still lurked in the shadows, waiting for its chance to rise again and consume us all. But as long as there were those willing to stand against it, I knew that there would always be hope. And with that thought burning bright in my heart, I vowed to continue the fight, no matter the cost, for the fate of the world depended on it. It all started innocently enough. I was your average college student, buried under a mountain of assignments and late-night study sessions. Like many others, I found solace in the depths of the internet, exploring its vast expanse during my breaks from reality. Little did I know, one innocent click would thrust me into a nightmare beyond comprehension. It was a typical evening, and I was mindlessly scrolling through Reddit when I stumbled upon a thread discussing the mysterious world of the dark web. Intrigued by the allure of the forbidden, I delved deeper, reading stories of illicit activities and hidden marketplaces. But it was a single comment that caught my eye, a tantalizing invitation to a game unlike any other. The user claimed to have stumbled upon a website during one of their late-night browsing sessions, a website shrouded in secrecy and whispered about in the darkest corners of the internet. According to the comment, the website hosted a twisted game where participants competed for their lives, navigating through a series of deadly challenges for the chance to win unimaginable riches. At first, I dismissed it as nothing more than an elaborate hoax, a fabricated tale spun by a bored internet user seeking attention. But as I continued to read through the thread, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. What if it was real? What if there truly existed a place where the boundaries of morality were blurred and the line between life and death was razor thin? Unable to shake the feeling of curiosity that gripped me, I followed the breadcrumbs left by the mysterious commenter, navigating through a labyrinth of obscure websites and encrypted links. After what felt like an eternity of searching, I found myself staring at a simple black web page, devoid of any text or images. A single prompt blinked in the center of the screen, a blinking cursor beckoning me to type. With trembling fingers, I hesitated for only a moment before typing a single word. Enter. Instantly, the screen flickered to life, revealing a sinister message written in blood-red letters. Welcome, brave soul, to the game of shadows. You have been chosen to partake in a journey unlike any other. A journey where the stakes are high and the consequences dire. Are you willing to risk it all for the chance to claim victory? Choose wisely, for once you enter, there is no turning back. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the ominous message, my mind warring between curiosity and fear. But deep down, a primal urge whispered for me to continue, to embrace the unknown and uncover the secrets hidden within the shadows. With a resolve born of desperation and reckless abandon, I clicked the accept button, sealing my fate inextricably to the sinister game that awaited me. Little did I know, my decision would plunge me into a nightmare from which there was no escape. A nightmare where every move I made could mean the difference between life and death. And as the screen faded to black, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. As the screen faded to black, I felt a chill crawl down my spine, a foreboding sense of dread settling in the pit of my stomach. When the darkness receded, I found myself standing in a dimly lit room, the faint glow of a monitor casting eerie shadows against the walls. The air was heavy with the scent of must and decay, and the silence that hung in the air was suffocating. I took a hesitant step forward, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of life. That's when I saw it, a single door standing ominously in the corner, beckoning me forward like a siren's call. With a trembling hand, I reached for the handle, the cold metal sending shivers down my spine. As the door creaked open, I was greeted by a blinding light that seared my retinas, forcing me to shield my eyes until they adjusted to the sudden brightness. When I finally lowered my hand, I found myself standing in a vast chamber, its walls lined with row upon row of monitors, each displaying a different scene of horror and despair. My heart hammered in my chest as I approached the nearest screen, my eyes widening in horror at the sight before me. I watched helplessly as a young woman screamed in agony, her body contorting in unnatural ways as unseen forces tormented her from all sides. Blood dripped from her fingertips, staining the pristine white floors crimson as her cries echoed through the chamber. I stumbled back in horror, my mind reeling at the realization of what I had stumbled upon. This wasn't just a game. It was a twisted arena where human lives were nothing more than pawns to be sacrificed for the entertainment of unseen spectators. And I was now a willing participant in this macabre spectacle, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. But even as fear threatened to consume me whole, a flicker of defiance ignited within me, a determination to survive against all odds and expose the darkness that lurked within the shadows. With newfound resolve, I turned away from the screens, steeling myself for the challenges that lay ahead. Little did I know, the true horrors of the game of shadows had only just begun, and the path to victory would be paved with blood and betrayal. But I refused to let fear dictate my fate. I would fight tooth and nail for my survival, no matter the cost. For in the depths of darkness, there still flickered a glimmer of hope, a beacon of light that refused to be extinguished. And as I took my first tentative steps into the unknown, I vowed to emerge victorious or die trying. As I ventured deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the game of shadows, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes tracking my every move with malicious intent. The air grew thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread hanging heavy in the stifling atmosphere. I found myself in a dimly lit chamber, its walls adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a gleaming dagger, a cruel reminder of the danger that lurked around every corner. With trembling hands, I approached the pedestal, my fingers brushing against the cold metal of the blade. As I grasped the dagger, a voice echoed in the depths of my mind, a sinister whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Survival is not for the weak," it hissed, its words dripping with malice. "Prove your worth or perish like the rest." With a sinking heart, I realized that I had no choice but to face the trial that lay ahead, a trial that would test not only my strength and cunning, but also my very will to survive. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come, and plunged the dagger into my palm, the searing pain lancing through my flesh like wildfire. Blood welled from the wound, staining the pristine floors crimson as I watched in horror, unable to look away. But even as I felt my strength waning, a newfound determination surged within me, a primal instinct to survive at any cost. With gritted teeth, I pressed my bloody palm against the ancient symbols that adorned the walls, willing them to yield to my command. To my astonishment, the symbols began to glow with an ethereal light, their power coursing through my veins like liquid fire. With a surge of energy, I willed the walls to part, revealing a hidden passage that led deeper into the heart of the labyrinth. I stepped through the threshold, my heart pounding in my chest as I braced myself for the horrors that awaited me. Little did I know, the true test of my mettle had only just begun, and the trials that lay ahead would push me to the very limits of my endurance. But I refused to back down. I would fight tooth and nail for my survival, no matter the odds. For in the darkest depths of despair, there still flickered a glimmer of hope, a beacon of light that refused to be extinguished. And as I plunged headlong into the unknown, I vowed to emerge victorious or die trying. As I navigated deeper into the bowels of the labyrinth, each step weighed heavily on my mind, the oppressive darkness pressing in from all sides like a suffocating blanket. Every shadow seemed to twist and contort, morphing into grotesque shapes that whispered sinister promises of pain and suffering. I found myself in a vast chamber, its walls lined with towering shelves that groaned under the weight of countless artifacts and trinkets, a macabre collection of trophies from those who had dared to tread this path before me. Among the relics, I spotted a small wooden box, its surface etched with strange runes that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. With trembling hands, I reached for the box, my fingers brushing against its weathered surface. As I lifted the lid, a noxious gas billowed forth, filling the chamber with a sickly sweet scent that made my head spin. Through watering eyes, I peered inside, my heart sinking at the sight of what lay within. Nestled among a bed of velvet lay a single key, a key that held the power to unlock the next trial that awaited me. But as I reached for it, a voice echoed in the recesses of my mind, a haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. Choose wisely, for every decision carries consequences, it whispered, its words laden with a warning I could not ignore. With a heavy heart, I took the key in hand, steeling myself for the challenges that lay ahead. Little did I know, the true test of my resolve had only just begun, and the trials that awaited me would push me to the very brink of sanity. I emerged from the chamber into a labyrinth of twisting corridors, each passage more treacherous than the last. I encountered traps that threatened to ensnare me at every turn, pitfalls lined with razor-sharp spikes, walls that closed in with a deafening roar, and illusions that twisted reality into a nightmarish landscape of torment. But even as despair threatened to consume me whole, a flicker of defiance burned within me, a determination to overcome the odds and emerge victorious against all odds. With every obstacle I faced, I grew stronger, my resolve hardening like tempered steel. And as I forged ahead into the unknown, I vowed to never surrender to the darkness that sought to consume me, to fight tooth and nail for my survival, no matter the cost. For in the depths of despair, there still flickered a glimmer of hope, a beacon of light that refused to be extinguished. And as I pressed forward into the heart of darkness, I vowed to emerge triumphant or die trying. As I ventured deeper into the labyrinth, the air grew thick with the stench of decay, a tangible reminder of the horrors that lurked within the shadows. Every step brought me closer to the heart of darkness, where the true mastermind behind the game of shadows awaited. I found myself standing in a vast chamber, its walls adorned with the grotesque symbols that seemed to writhe and twist in the flickering torchlight. At the center of the room stood a figure cloaked in darkness, its form obscured by the swirling shadows that danced around it like malevolent spirits. With a sinking heart, I realized that I had finally come face to face with the architect of my torment, the puppet master who had pulled the strings from the shadows, orchestrating the twisted game that had consumed my life. "Welcome, brave soul," the figure hissed, its voice a twisted mockery of humanity. "You have proven yourself worthy of facing me in battle. But know this, only one of us will emerge victorious." With a surge of defiance, I stepped forward, my fists clenched in determination. "I will not be a pawn in your sick game any longer," I spat, my voice ringing with righteous fury. "I will fight you with every fiber of my being, and I will not rest until you are vanquished from this world." The figure chuckled darkly, its eyes gleaming with malice. "So be it," it whispered, its voice echoing through the chamber like a death knell. "Let the final battle begin." With a deafening roar, the figure lunged forward, its movements a blur of shadow and steel. I dodged and weaved, my muscles screaming in protest as I fought tooth and nail to evade its relentless assault. But with each passing moment, I felt my strength waning, my resolve slipping like sand through my fingers. As the figure closed in for the kill, a surge of adrenaline coursed through my veins, fueling my last desperate stand. With a primal scream, I unleashed a flurry of blows, each strike fueled by the burning desire to survive against all odds. And then, in a blinding flash of light, it was over. The figure staggered back, its form dissipating into the ether like smoke in the wind. I stood victorious, my chest heaving with exertion as I surveyed the carnage that lay in my wake. But even as I basked in the glory of my triumph, a sense of unease gnawed at the edges of my mind, a lingering doubt that whispered of the darkness that still lingered within the shadows. For in the twisted world of the game of shadows, victory came at a steep price, a price paid in blood and sacrifice. And as I turned to leave the chamber behind, I knew that the horrors I had faced would haunt me forevermore, a grim reminder of the darkness that lurked within us all. I never imagined that my curiosity would lead me down such a dark and twisted path. It all started innocently enough, with a casual conversation in an online forum about the paranormal. I've always been fascinated by the supernatural, so when someone mentioned the existence of a hidden corner of the internet where one could supposedly communicate with spirits, I was immediately intrigued. The forum was buzzing with tales of people who claimed to have made contact with the other side through the dark web. Some shared chilling stories of encounters with vengeful ghosts, while others boasted about the secrets they had uncovered from beyond the grave. As someone who had always been skeptical of such things, I was skeptical, but also undeniably drawn in by the allure of the unknown. After some research, I managed to find my way onto the dark web and stumbled upon a website that promised to connect me with the spirits. The interface was crude and unsettling, with eerie graphics and cryptic symbols littering the screen. But I pushed aside my apprehension and followed the instructions, lighting candles and reciting incantations as instructed. To my surprise, something seemed to happen. A chill ran down my spine as the candles flickered and the air grew heavy with an unseen presence. I could almost feel eyes watching me from the shadows, and a voice echoed in my mind, whispering words that sent shivers down my spine. For days, I was consumed by my newfound obsession, spending hours on end trying to communicate with whatever entity had latched onto me. It became an addiction, a dangerous game that I couldn't resist playing, despite the growing sense of unease that gnawed at the back of my mind. But then, things took a turn for the worse. One night, as I sat alone in my dimly lit room, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. The air grew thick with malevolence, and the candles flickered violently, as if caught in a violent wind. I felt a presence looming over me, dark and oppressive, and I knew with a sinking heart that I had made a grave mistake. That's when the voices started, whispers, barely audible at first, but growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand, words that seemed to claw at my sanity and fill me with a primal fear unlike anything I had ever experienced. I tried to disconnect from the website, to banish whatever entity had invaded my life, but it was too late. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making, a prisoner of the dark forces that had been unleashed upon me. And as the voices grew louder and more frantic, I realized with a sickening sense of dread that I was in way over my head. As the nights passed, the presence in my room grew stronger, its malevolent energy suffocating me like a heavy blanket. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything except the whispers that echoed incessantly in my mind. They spoke of unspeakable horrors, of dark rituals and sinister intentions that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to reach out for help, to confide in friends or family, but the words caught in my throat every time I tried to speak of the nightmare consuming my life. How could I explain the inexplicable, the feeling of being watched by something that shouldn't exist, something that defied all rational explanation? Instead, I turned to the very thing that had brought me to this point, the dark web. Desperate for answers, I scoured forums and chat rooms, seeking guidance from others who had experienced similar encounters. But the responses I received only fueled my growing sense of dread. Some warned me to sever all ties with the spirit world before it was too late, while others shared stories of people who had vanished without a trace after delving too deep into the mysteries of the dark web. It was as if I had stumbled upon a hidden realm of madness and despair, a place where the line between reality and nightmare blurred beyond recognition. And still, the voices persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing day. They seemed to be guiding me, pushing me towards some unknown destination with a sense of urgency that left me trembling with fear. I knew that I had to find a way to break free from their grip, but every attempt to disconnect from the website only seemed to make them stronger. As the days turned into weeks, I could feel my sanity slipping away, consumed by the relentless onslaught of darkness that surrounded me. I became paranoid, convinced that I was being watched at every moment, that there was no escape from the malevolent force that had taken hold of my life. And then, one night, as I lay huddled in my bed, the whispers reached a fever pitch. They spoke of sacrifice, of blood and suffering, and I knew with a sickening certainty that I was running out of time. In a last desperate bid for salvation, I reached for the laptop sitting on my bedside table, fingers trembling as I typed out a message to anyone who might be able to help me. But as I hit send, the screen flickered and went dark, and a cold dread stole me like a shroud. I was alone, trapped in a nightmare of my own making, with no one to hear my cries for help as I hurtled towards the abyss. With each passing moment, the walls of my reality seemed to close in around me, suffocating me with their oppressive weight. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own creation, with no hope of escape as the darkness consumed me from within. As the days stretched into an eternity of torment, I found myself slipping further and further into madness. The whispers that had once filled me with terror now seemed to be the only source of solace in my increasingly fractured mind, their seductive promises of power and salvation luring me deeper into the abyss. I began to lose track of time, of reality itself, as I fell deeper under the spell of the entity that had taken control of my life. My days became a blur of sleepless nights and fevered dreams, each more twisted and horrifying than the last, as the boundary between nightmare and reality blurred beyond recognition. I no longer knew who I was or what I had become, lost in a haze of fear and despair that seemed to stretch on for eternity. The world around me grew dim and distorted, a twisted reflection of the darkness that consumed my soul. And I knew with a sickening certainty that I was beyond saving. But even in the depths of my despair, a small glimmer of hope flickered in the darkness. A voice, faint and distant at first, but growing stronger with each passing moment, whispered words of guidance and redemption, urging me to break free from the chains that bound me. With a newfound sense of purpose, I reached out to the voice, grasping desperately for the flickering flame of hope that it offered. And as I did, something shifted within me, a spark of defiance that ignited into a blazing inferno of determination. I knew that I had to fight, to claw my way back from the brink of oblivion before it was too late. With every ounce of strength left in my shattered soul, I pushed back against the darkness, driving it back with a ferocity born of desperation. And as the whispers faded into silence and the shadows receded, I felt a sense of peace wash over me like a cleansing tide. I had emerged from the abyss bruised and broken, but somehow stronger for the ordeal, a survivor of the darkest depths of human depravity. But even as I emerged from the darkness, I knew that the scars it had left behind would never truly heal. I had glimpsed the true face of evil, felt its icy grip tighten around my soul, and I knew that I would carry the weight of that knowledge with me for the rest of my days. In the aftermath of my harrowing ordeal, I struggled to piece together the shattered fragments of my life. The memories of the darkness that had consumed me haunted my every waking moment, a constant reminder of the horrors I had witnessed and the darkness that still lingered just beyond the edge of my perception. I tried to bury myself in my work, to lose myself in the mundane routines of daily life, but the specter of my past loomed over me like a shadow, refusing to be ignored. Sleep became a distant memory, replaced by restless nights plagued by nightmares that seemed all too real, each one a twisted reflection of the horrors I had endured. I tried to reach out for help, to confide in those closest to me, but the words caught in my throat every time I tried to speak of the darkness that still clung to me like a suffocating fog. How could I explain the unexplainable, the feeling of being trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape? And then, just when I thought I couldn't bear the weight of my burden any longer, I received a message. It was from someone who claimed to have been following my story, someone who claimed to understand the true nature of the darkness that had consumed my life. At first, I was hesitant to respond, wary of opening myself up to further manipulation or deceit, but something in the tone of the message struck a chord within me, a sense of empathy and understanding that I hadn't felt in years. So, with a trembling hand, I typed out a response, reaching out to this stranger in the hopes that they might offer some shred of solace in my darkest hour. To my surprise, they responded almost immediately, their words a balm to my weary soul, as they offered words of comfort and understanding. They spoke of their own experiences with the darkness, of the struggles they had faced, and the triumphs they had achieved in the face of unimaginable adversity. And as we continued to converse, I felt a sense of camaraderie and connection that I hadn't felt in years. It was as if I had finally found someone who truly understood the depths of my suffering, someone who could help me navigate the treacherous waters of my own mind and emerge stronger on the other side. But even as I allowed myself to hope, a nagging sense of unease gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. There was something about this stranger, something that seemed too good to be true, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their story than they were letting on. And as the days turned into weeks, that feeling only grew stronger until it consumed me like a raging fire, burning away the last vestiges of my fragile sense of security. I knew that I had to tread carefully, to trust my instincts, and be wary of the darkness that still lurked just beyond the edge of my vision. But try as I might, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into a web of deceit and manipulation from which there could be no escape. And as the shadows closed in around me once more, I knew that the nightmare was far from over. As the days passed, my correspondence with the mysterious stranger grew increasingly intense. They spoke of forbidden knowledge and hidden truths, of secrets that had been buried for centuries beneath layers of deception and deceit. And with each passing moment, I found myself drawn deeper into their web of intrigue, unable to resist the allure of the forbidden knowledge they promised. But as the darkness closed in around me once more, I began to question their motives. There was something about their words that didn't ring true, a sense of manipulation and deceit that left a bitter taste in my mouth. And yet, try as I might, I couldn't bring myself to sever ties with them completely, couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something I had yet to uncover. And then, one fateful night, everything came crashing down around me. I received a message from the stranger, a single word that sent a chill down my spine. Come. With a sense of trepidation, I followed their instructions, navigating the dark recesses of the internet until I found myself on a website unlike any I had ever seen before. It was a place of shadows and whispers, a digital graveyard where the echoes of the past lingered like ghosts in the night. And as I delved deeper into its depths, I stumbled upon a revelation that shook me to my core. The stranger was not who they claimed to be, but a pawn in a much larger game, a puppet controlled by forces far beyond their comprehension. And I, in my ignorance and naivety, had fallen right into their trap. With a sinking heart, I realized the true nature of the darkness that had consumed my life, the malevolent force that had been manipulating me from the very beginning. And as the realization dawned upon me, I knew that I had only one choice left. With a trembling hand, I reached for the laptop sitting on my desk, fingers shaking as I typed out a message to the stranger, a final plea for redemption in the face of overwhelming despair. But even as I hit send, I knew that it was too late, that the darkness had already claimed me as its own. And as the screen flickered and went dark, I felt a sense of resignation wash over me like a tidal wave, dragging me down into the depths of oblivion. I had played a dangerous game with forces beyond my control, and now, as the darkness closed in around me, I knew that there was no escaping the consequences of my actions. But even as I surrendered myself to the abyss, a small part of me held out hope that someday, somehow, I might find a way to break free from the chains that bound me and emerge into the light once more. For in the darkest depths of despair, even the faintest glimmer of hope can be a beacon of salvation in a world consumed by shadows.